What's up, everybody? It's Jason Cruz from MMA Payout. We are doing a little something different. I know it's been a while, but it's another interview. And this time we are talking with a author and an artist, Chris Rini, from bloodyelbow.com. And he has a new book, The Fine Art of Violence, Volume number 1. Chris, welcome to the program. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
That's great, great. And then you are contacting us from New York City, correct?
That's right, from the great state of anarchy.
Yes, and I am from Seattle, so it's unbelievable that we can get this going with all the problems going on. But thank God we are alive and well. We are alive to tell our friends in other states, please, please. And so, tell us a little bit about the Fine Art of Violence, Volume 1. What's the book about?
It's an illustrated. It's a collection of artwork and essays that is kind of a chronological look at the year 2019 through the lens of art and through the essays of Josh Rosenblatt, my editor at Fightland, when we worked together at Vice. Its lack of a season, there's this like relentless crush of the schedule, and each event gets washed away by the next event, and I think that it's hard for people to quantify what happened and what was important and what was worth remembering. And we do remember like fight of the year, or like John Jones greatest calendar year ever. But I think that we do that so rarely. And if we could, I wanted to put together something that you could pick up in 10 years and flip through and be like, this is awesome. This is great. And I remove a lot of context, a lot, like the crowd, the cage, the advertisements. I think the advertisements are one of the most insidious things about the UFC, how they can take you out of the moment, if you're like, oh, they're not on Fox anymore. Oh, remember then they switched to Modelo, it the things you see change the way you see the fight, and then you're not looking at the fighters. So for the book, everything is gone except the fighters, and that's my way of acknowledging them. This is a lot of the stuff I do for Bloody Elbow is, satirical and critiquing the wider world of MMA, and I just wanted to make something that's a celebration of to be like, this is why I'm here. This is what I love. This is what I want to contribute. I want to be a part of it.
And so for those that don't know, and you probably should know, Chris also draws for Bloody Elbow, and you do it during the events, correct?
Yes, I guess, yes, I do. Yeah, on Saturday nights, I'm there. I used to do it with charcoal and newsprint, and now I've finally, at 40, 41 years old, I bought an iPad, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go digital, like when Dylan plugged in his guitar.
So let me ask you then, quickly, just a tech question.
Sure.
How much did you? How much was it? Was it easy? Like the commercials they show about switching over to drawing on the iPad or or Surface or whatever it is that you use, or was there a bit of a kind of a getting used to with it?
I think initially you're like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And I've joked on Twitter a bunch of times, like, I used to think that you going digital was cheating. And now that I've switched, it's totally cheating, but also magic. But there's a massive learning curve once you go beyond like the surface. Once you scratch the surface, it's like, Jesus Christ, this is rough. So I'm actually watching some real rudimentary introductory videos on like Procreate. So I have two apps. I got Comic Draw because I'm kind of working on a graphic novel with an author as a side project. And I was like, okay, I need to be able to make panels, layouts, dialogue. This looks like a good app. And that's what I used to do MMA squared. You know, I just basically replicate what it's like to do a pencil drawing, ink it, and then fill it in with marker. I'm like doing like stuff that you could do in like 1998. You know, I'm keeping it super simple. And then for Procreate, I'm trying to make, you know, what I would capital A artwork or capital A art. Now I'm like, wow, this is really challenging. I have to learn. So I'm simultaneously like watching these videos about how to paint using digitally, how to really. I'm trying to approach it like a beginner, like if I was a teenager and I was like, I want to be an artist and I'm going to do it this way. And I'm trying to be really humble about it. I actually spent like a day or two, like, here's how to do a human eye, you know, like one of those close up, you know,
Yeah.
macro photography type things. I did one of those and I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. All right. You're just following along with the video, make a new layer, put this thing on, make a new layer, put this thing on. And then I'm also reading this famous book from, I think, the 50s called Drawing the Figure for What It's Worth, or For All It's Worth, by this guy Andrew Loomis. So I'm trying to be really humble about my own abilities. Like, I know what I can do, and that's what's in the book. It's almost like this. It's kind of cool that, like, you know, volume 1, Fine Art of Violence, is like, that's me just doing my thing. I have like my skills, my ability, my style, and I just put it all out there. And it's kind of a funny way of saying, like, I finally did what I want to do.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to scrap it all, you know, and learn a new way to do it.
So how did you come about just organizing the book? I mean, you do it by weight divisions, but how did you come about? I mean, you could have done it by events, you could have done it by fighters, you could have done it by whatever. But how did you come out doing it like that? And then what was the, you know, threshold as far as, you know, I'm only going to do so many X amount, or did you use all of the ones that you've created this past year?
I'll say this, I drew too many pictures this time. Or rather, I drew too many individual fights. I think for future volumes, I would like to be able to do more drawings about fewer significant fights. Because I was just like, every single event, I'm like, who was great? Who had a great performance? You know, there's like, man, I think there are 2 Nico Price knockouts in this book, you know, and they're awesome. They're great. You love it. You know, there are certain fighters who I'm just kind of personally invested in. I'm just going to draw them every single time they fight. You know, like Junior Dos Santos, got to get that in there, you know, which is good and bad. You know, there's a certain way of being like, oh, I got to make sure this person gets repped, you know. But on the other hand, now I'm looking at volume 2, and I'm keeping a much more, what's the word? I'm being much more curatorial in what's going in the next book. And I'm like, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Weili Zhang.
Mm-hmm.
That fight cannot possibly be summed up in a single image, you know.
Right.
If you know, whether it's because of the relentlessness of the 5 rounds and also the physical transformation that Jędrzejczyk went through over the course of the fight, and like even moments like, I don't know if you remember at the end of the 2nd round where Zhang gets hurt really badly and her corner comes out and they pick her up and carry her to the corner. Like all of like this is. They always talk about how in boxing, a fight has like a narrative that unfolds. And that was one of those fights where that happened. You know, they were just, it was like walking a tightrope for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And you like wobble from side to side. And I want to give like a lot more of my attention to that fight than capture every single cool knockout that happened.
Yeah, definitely. And it was a great fight to recall and capture, just because it had, like you said, it had ebbs and flows, and I mean, Joanna's face, just the transformation, as you say, throughout, just, you know, was ridiculous. It was a great thing to capture. So one of the other things that you do here in the book is you do black and white and color. What was the concept there?
The black and whites are all the live fight night drawings.
Okay.
Those are the ones where I'm sitting on Twitter and I got like a big old newsprint pad and charcoal. I'm just trying to bang out. I started out just kind of goofing around, like just doing silly drawings
Hmm.
of the fights and just kind of making jokes and stuff. And then at some point, I think I was just looking back at some of the work I had done in college, and I realized that um, probably the number one best thing that I did in college was take life drawing. You know, like just you in a room, bunch of people, naked model, in like 3 hours, and do that like 2 to 3 times a week. And those drawings are probably the only thing from college that I would look back on 20 years later and be like, oh, that's good work, you know? And those, and in particular, it's the poses that were like 2 to 5 minutes long. You know, the stuff where you're really trying to capture the body and like a pose and like the weight distribution in a very short period of time. So you're not going for realism, you're going for anatomy and balance and believability. Like, you know, you're trying to like tell the idea of what was happening, not the perfect rendering of it. And I was like, this is perfect for fights. You know, this momentary flash of like, you know, like that ground and pound moment, you know, where someone's limbs are flailing all around and someone's like throwing like laser precision shots, that sort of thing. I really like drawing clinching against the fence. Like, you know, it's funny how like a moment that I don't necessarily look forward to in a fight, like, oh, I can't wait till they're locked up against the fence and, you know, over unders.
Right.
But as a drawing model, it's actually really compelling because the way the bodies are pressed up against each other, and you know, usually one guy has his like legs pitched like diagonally away from the cage, the person, and then the other one getting held up. They're like on their toes, their hips are being lifted up. It's really I don't know, it's a fascinating position for people to be in. There's like an amazing amount of tension in those moments.
How long does it take you to sketch these things out, like real time? So the black and whites that you do, I mean, I would just imagine that you lock on something that you think is cool, you start to draw it, but then it moves. How do you go about dealing with that?
I have a pretty good, what's the word? A pretty good eye, for capturing the significance of a moment, and then a relatively good memory. I guess that's the best way to put it. And sometimes I just like, you look at it and you just lock it in your mind. And sometimes you're just, it hits you. Like it's, I don't know, maybe that's why I'm a fan, you know, like I was watching fights and like, just like a magical moment happened and it just like imprints itself. And I just give myself only like 2 to 5 minutes, like I said, about that much. And I try and bang them out as fast as I can. You know, so I experiment a lot with drawing very big or drawing very small. That's a really helpful thing. I'm still getting the hang of. I can't do all the tricks that I was able to do with charcoal digitally. So you know, I'm learning.
And so how does that translate to? I mean, this is just me being ADD kind of. I mean, how do you say to yourself when you're doing the live drawing, and you just say, okay, now I got to move on? I mean, at what point do you say, I've completed this drawing, and then I want to see what else is there I can do?
I know that overworking a piece is the best way to destroy it.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Yeah. I very rarely have been like, let's get down in the details and really go for perfection. That's not, you know, that's not the person I am. I guess I'm more of a impressionistic kind of artist. I was talking with another person about this recently, and this is a good way to put it. This is a concept that you'll come across with illustrators, especially. If I draw a tall rectangle with a small circle halfway down on one side, you know, and tell you, I wouldn't even have to tell you, be like, oh, it's a door, you know? But I didn't draw a door, I drew the symbol of a door. So there are illustrators who are like, no, you're going to draw the wood grain, you're going to get the dimensions right, you're going to get the light and shadow, you're going to put it in the context of a wall and a house, and you're going to render it into a door. And you're not drawing a symbol of a door, you're drawing a door. And I think the way I draw fights is I want to like thread the needle. I want to be right in between the symbol of a fighter, as the symbol of the human body, and actually drawing the human body. I'm very rarely going to have perfectly anatomically rendered, musculature. I'm not gonna. I don't. I'm not doing photorealistic likenesses. But when you flip through the book, you're like, well, there's Nate Diaz. Oh yeah, there's Jorge Masvidal. Oh yeah, that's a good Ben Askren. Like the essence of who these people are. Like you can't, you see who they are. You know exactly who they are. But it's not like you're ever going to like hold it up to a photo and be like, I can't tell the difference. Yeah, that's not who I am. But somehow you're going to look at that and be like, yep, Nate Diaz, one of my favorite people to draw. I think these fighters, many people, not everyone, but many people have some sort of defining characteristics to them. And it's not about caricature. It's about picking out elements of like their personality that come out in their physical appearance.
And I'm kind of scrolling through your book as we're talking as well. And one of the ones that stick out to me is, of course, the famous Jorge Masvidal finishing of Ben Askren, and his cornrows are flailing in the air, and you could see the arm as prone Askren is being pummeled as he is knocked out. But I mean that's it's one of those things where it takes you to that moment that you could almost you could forget about what happened, and you'll see it and you'll like, oh, I know this is Masvidal, this is this is Askren, I know who these people are. So right. Let's go back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your background. I assume you went to art school. Were you a martial artist before this, and that's what you got you in, or you just fell in love with the sport, or really like? No,
I fell in love with the sport probably in my early 30s.
Okay.
When I was in art school, I also played music, and in my freshman year, I met one of my closest friends who would be like bass player. We like wanted to be in a band together, and I mean, we played together. I played with him from about the age of 17 to about 30 years old, I think. And yeah, that was just my main focus for most of those years, is like, playing music, kind of being a sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of hipster, like, like kind of, yeah, that was my main concern, was like having friends and having a good time. I loved playing music. I loved having friends. Like I didn't really connect with a lot of people through grade school and high school. And then like finally I went to college, I went to art school, and I felt like I was meeting a lot more like-minded people. And I think when I graduated, I just wasn't ready to be like, because the life of an artist is a very solitary one.
Yeah.
You have to be comfortable by yourself, and you actually have to crave solitary time. And I didn't at that time. I really wanted party. I really wanted to just like chase girls and be on stage and just like write music, and like I was totally addicted to the high of playing music with my friends. And I was in the same band for a little over a decade. So oh, wow. It was a wonderful experience, to be with the same people for that long. So it's very hard to let go. And, they're still my closest friends now. But in my 30s, I tried like kind of getting my life together, and I got a job as an accountant for like a failing hospital. And I would just sit in my cubicle with like nothing to do for most of my days. And I was just like watching YouTube videos of fight compilations. I think I graduated from street fights to UFC fights. And I hit a point where like I didn't want to, it wasn't satisfying anymore just to watch pure violence. like I had to understand what was happening. So I just started watching old fights and then reading the Wikipedia pages of who were these winners and what style did they have and why did that guy win. And that was really I spent like 2 years watching old fights before I even bothered watching contemporary UFC events.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. So, I mean, were you like one of those guys that was way into Pride at that time, or was it like like the early days of UFC that you were interested in?
I definitely, well, Crow Cop was like the first fighter. And I was like, oh, wow. Because I saw him knock out Bob Sapp. And I was like,
Yeah.
why did this little guy win, you know? And so I guess it was probably about 2008 when I got that job and started seeing all this stuff. So Pride's peak had already, I always think about the peak of Pride. It was like 2006, Crow Cop wins the Grand Prix, right? So I guess in a way, it didn't. I would like read the news clips. Like people were excited that Shogun was, gonna fight, and I'd be like, all right, I'll watch all the old Shogun fights, or oh, GSP's fighting this week. I'll watch all the old GSP fights. That's kind of how I went. And then along with that, watching like super old stuff and some of the tournaments and kind of basically whatever was happening during those years between 08 2000 to 2010. Like I would kind of read the news a little bit and I would kind of see the names of people and then read the comments about, oh, he's nowhere near as good as so-and-so was back in the day. And then like, all right, I'll go check that out. That's kind of how my, and it's also just whatever you can find, especially in those days.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I remember just late night cable kind of thing or YouTube kind of thing. That was how it is. But and then so how did you get involved in actually drawing MMA for kind of a living, I guess?
Well, that was kind of funny. That job was a disaster, and that marriage was a disaster.
Oh, no.
And well, they both ended about the same time, and I actually ended up going to work for my bassist, who owns a health food store, and I went to a 10-day long Vipassana meditation retreat. And I was like, man, I got to get my head together. I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to be an artist. Like, that's who I am at my core. That's what and I was making art still at that time. I was doing wood engraving, but like my theme, like the grand theme behind my work, my materials were cool, my skills were good, but my theme was not there. So I went and I meditated for 10 days, and you meditate for 10 hours a day. You don't talk, you don't look anyone in the eye, you don't draw, you don't write, you don't do anything. And midway through, I was like, boom, man, MMA, like this is it. This is my opportunity to put together, my love of, figurative work and this sport that's so new. It still doesn't have all of its icons. Like, man, everyone is still, I know it's not, I don't mean this literally, but like everyone is still alive. Hoist Gracie is still alive. Like they're all, everybody's getting older.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like, this is so young that there's room for a person like me who's kind of a, I also identify a little bit with this sport. I've heard Jordan Breen speak really eloquently about like the MMA is the place where all misfits end up, and I cannot tell you how right that is. I'm like a mixed race person. I've kind of bounced around in a lot of different places and haven't really felt like I fit in anywhere. And like this place is like, boom, have I got something for you guys? Like I've got like this background in art history, especially the Italian Renaissance. And I think it would be the perfect metaphor for explaining what's going on in this cage fight,
Yeah.
And somehow like, it's funny. I did this meditation retreat, and I'll say it's very possible that I went through the first 30 some odd years of my life never believing in myself. And I came back and I was like, I'm going to do this and it's going to work out. And I was so laser focused. I was able to do it that I was like, it's going to work out. I had a moment, I believed in myself, and I'm just going to trust it. And I was like 2012 when I had that, when I went to the place, and, 6 months later, I got hired at Fightland. And, I took a break. I took a break from working in the media because I had a couple kids. I got remarried, and, MMA media jobs do not pay a lot. And then I got carpal tunnel and tendonitis in my arm.
Oh.
And I took a break from even making art. Yeah. I whined a lot about it for years. I don't talk much about it now, but I probably can't even do wood engraving anymore. But it's funny, like, you can lose a lot in life, and it still teaches you, like, you're still you. And I would prefer not to lose much more. I think
so Fightland was your very first MMA position. Is that how did you come about? Did you meet Josh beforehand? You just answered an ad, or how did that work?
Oh, he cold called me. Well, okay. I was definitely fishing for work. I didn't know how to look for it, so I was super active on Reddit, on the MMA board there. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make like a little body of work, and then I'm going to cap it off with this. I made an animation of Anderson Silva knocking out Forrest Griffin. And I put that out there. I think I put it out like the week of Junior Dos Santos versus Cain Velasquez 2.
Okay. Oh, I remember that. Yep.
And boom, man, it was perfect. Like, it hit Reddit, and then like Middle Easy did a piece on it, and then someone told me that Joe Rogan tweeted it out, but I never saw it. But I believe it, because then Josh Rosenblatt was like, tracked me down, did an interview with me, and it was great. It was a great experience, And then I was like, well, keep an eye out. I'm starting a blog, and I'm going to do this historical MMA series on it. And he's like, why don't you come do it for us? So I was like, yes. And he's like, yeah, we'll pay you. And I was like, I didn't even think about that.
That's awesome. Man. That's great. Yeah. So you work for them. And so Josh, if you've ever watched the interview series, I don't know how many people have, but Josh is one of the people that I interviewed for his book, and he then wrote the foreword. Is that what you would call it? Or intro?
Yeah, he wrote the introduction, and he wrote all 10 essays in the book.
Okay. Excellent. And so it was, the intro essays really shows, how good writer Josh is, and how much he valued you at the time, and kind of gives you a context as like, well, what he was creating at the time, and also a little bit of a snippet about how MMA media kind of is that it's still just it's not where you make a lot of money. It's just kind of a lot of passion involved.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, and so tell us a little bit about how you could get your hands on this particular book. So did you have to go through let's back up a little bit. How did you go through the process of publishing this book? How long did it take, that kind of stuff?
I'm so lucky that Josh was there. I asked him to edit it because I was planning on writing it myself, and then he's like, got any stuff? I'm like, no, I don't have anything yet. He's like, you want me to write it for you? I was like, yes, I do. So we kind of worked together very much in the way we did back in Fightland, where I was like, look, here's the artwork I'm making, and here's the idea of why I chose this person, this particular pose, this, particular idea. Like, the ideas behind why I made the literal image I made. And sometimes I would make the images. They would be referencing pieces of art history that he would have to then read and learn about before he could write it. And other times they were just referencing the tone of MMA at the moment when that fight happened. And, that's how we kind of came up with everything. And then I ended up meeting this guy named Nate, as luck would have it, through MMA Squared. He's just a user, at Bloody Elbow, a commenter. And he just loved MMA Squared. He was like, "This stuff is great, man. I like the humor, I like the art," and we just kind of struck up a kind of friendship. And then he's a graphic designer, and I was like, "Hey, I want to do these cool gags, for the comic." And he's like, "Yeah, I'll help you out." And then I was like, "Look, man, I want to make this book," and I was like, "I'll pay you a professional rate. Would you do the layout for me?" And he's like, "Yes." And man, that's it. Like that, I hit an age now where I'm like, I know what I'm good at, and I'm gonna not second guess myself on any of that stuff. And I know what I'm bad at, and I'm gonna get somebody else to do that.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. That's one of the hard parts when you're working on your own or by yourself, knowing when to do
It
it.
is. Yeah, I think I know this is true for myself. It's true for some, not everyone, but insecurity, in my case, manifests as I'll do it all myself. Because to ask for help means to like show your vulnerable side, show your shortcomings, and run the risk of feeling like everyone's gonna see you for like a fraud or like, or whatever, like, and if you just are like, man, I just want to make something great. And I know which parts I can do great, and I'm just going to get someone else to do the parts that I can't. I hired a friend who's a professional photographer to photograph the drawings. Like I went to Staples, I went to a couple stationery places to get the book scanned, and people just did a terrible job every time. And I was like, I'm done.
Awesome. So now, tell us
Yes.
where you could purchase the book.
ChrisRini.com. ChrisRini.com. I have a little bit of sad news and great news at the same time. The physical book is sold out. It's sold out in 3 days.
That's awesome.
And I'm so thrilled. Yeah. I did make it as an ebook as well.
Yes.
So you can just get that at the site. For the time being, this is going to be similar to, that company Supreme?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I'm kind of following their model where, I'm making boutique work. Let's not joke around, This is not t-shirt art. This is not fan art. This is fine art. And there's like a lot of concept behind it. It's not just like knockout punches and like, you can describe it with words beyond kick-ass and awesome. And I know it's going to take a little time, but I'm so heartened by the response that people snap this book up. I'm going to do a limited run each year. I want this to be a special event that people are truly look forward to. And someone asked me recently, how will you know that you've made it? And aside from paying off my mortgage, I would say that in a couple years, maybe in 5 years or so, once this book has like, a couple print runs under its belt, there are going to be young fighters who are hoping that one day they do something special enough that I'm going to draw them and they're going to end up in the book. They're going to know that they did something of note worth being remembered for. Because they're like, one day I'm going to get in there and Chris Rini is going to draw what I did, and I'm really looking forward to that day.
That is pretty awesome. So we expect a 2020 run. Is that what we're thinking about?
Yep.
That is. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I think one day my children will leave this house and go to school again, and on that day. I will activate either my YouTube channel or my Twitch channel, and I'm gonna live stream the making of the book. That is what I'm truly. That's the other reason I'm switching to digital. I would like to actually, have people kind of be along for the ride as it gets made, rather than sit silently in my, coffee shop in Jackson Heights and draw for 12 months, and just like, hey guys, it's gonna be great. Just wait, It would be nice to have people, I have this fantasy that people are actually going to be, kind of excited to weigh in, like after an event, and be like, so and so is going to be in the book now, right? Like, Ferguson versus Gaethje, like, like, oh my God, that moment right at the end, right before Herb Dean stopped the fight, where Tony gets clubbed and he just like stumbles backwards and he kind of shakes his head, like he's like, no, come on, let's go. He's like his body is starting to give out, and
But
his
his
willpower is still, his mind is like, snap out of it. Oh, it's like heartbreaking, but like these are the moments that I'm looking for. These are and like even when Gaethje's coach is like, take 10% off, like these are the moments where if you can add a little bit of context to like the straight up violence, man, there's something great for people. There's something great to be had.
That is awesome. So we're going to end our conversation here, but first, again, plug the website where you could purchase the electronic book.
That's correct, at chrisrini.com.
Yes, and then you could also see you on what's that website that everyone hates?
People hate it the most on Mondays and Wednesdays when I publish MMA Squared at bloodyelbow.com.
Yeah, I mean, anybody could be on that website. I mean, even me. But anyway,
seriously, man.
Chris, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much. Jason Cruz, the interview. We'll see you guys later.